Hello, and welcome to the Santaland podcast. I created it just for you. I'm your host, Tony Felice, and each episode I'll read to you for 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about what we just heard. Like the cricket in my story, I'll guide you through a grown-up fairy tale, one that explores ideas of existence, identity, and the soul's journey through trauma, and the transformative power of love. By the end, you'll have heard my whole story, a sneak peek into the creative process of bringing a book to life. Maybe we'll read other books together. But for now, follow the wise cricket and discover the Santaland within yourself, a place of hope, connection, and peace that's already inside of you. This podcast is especially made for those like me who feel a little different and maybe talk about math at weddings or philosophy at funerals. And like me, maybe you have a loving husband, or a wife, or somebody else that loves you. If not, we're here to love you, because you're in good company, my dear friends, here in Santaland. Welcome back to the Santaland podcast. I'm so excited that you're still here. We are already up to chapter 17, and it is entitled Just Another Chicken Dance. The next day, David stood in the barn, again dirty, again hunky. A vein bulged in his biceps, pointing out the obvious. Hard work had produced the flowers. Hard work had produced the body. Tan, lumberjackish, blonde, Swedish-descended, lovable, homespun David. It was a bit sneaky of him to be so obvious, but he loved the attention. Preening by pretending to reach for the door jamb, David improvised a casual action, but took a movie idol pose in the doorway. It was all very dramatic. Tom was sitting at his desk and slowly turned around. David thought, he sees me. Do I look okay? I probably have stuff in my hair. Those thoughts passed through David's head in gulps, like too much water, too fast, on a parched throat. Painful, pleasurable, and necessary. He unconsciously hiccuped, breaking the spell of the moment, thinking, is this okay? Should I be distracting him? Does this help? Ha! Excuse you, said Tom. Hang on, I'll be right back, David said, and darted his blonde head around the corner and disappeared again. David disappears again, said Tom, a running joke about David never answering the phone when Tom called. David shot his head from around the corner. Want some lunch? But he found Tom looking at the ocean, the teasing set aside for thoughts. A blush had spread across David's chest and was peeking pink. Concern ran across his face. What you thinking about, babe? Mama? Sort of, Tom replied. Yeah, but other stuff too. I feel a sense of dread, even though I'm happy. Suddenly the phone rang, jolting us all into reality. Hello? Tom said, gesturing for David to stay put in a singular motion. Crackle on the line. Hello, Tom? Tom responded to the caller. Speak of the devil. He made a face at David. David figured out who it was. I hope you mean that with love, darling. How are you? Meredith. On her honeymoon. She must want something, Tom thought. I'm fine, Mare. How are you and Jerry? Are you in Lisbon? Yes, darling. I'm back in 3 days. Until then, it's gin rickeys and a handsy new husband. Congrats, Mare. You deserve it, Tom said. It took, 3 centuries and an unknown number of gin bottles? Shut up, you. I have news. Let's have lunch when I get back. Fine. What? Nothing. Tom, what is it? Nothing. You're on your honeymoon. Call me when you get back. Is David there? Tell him I love him. Yes, Meredith, I will. He waved to David, who screamed across the expanse, I love you. Tom muted the call, and peace and quiet re-entered the space on inquisitive feet. You haven't told her, have you? Asked David. No. When? Probably in New York. It looks like I'm going to have to fly there. Another chicken dance, David thought, thinking of their brother-in-law Carr, and a story, now the stuff of family legend. Claire's husband Carr and his chicken. a scrawny, overworked chicken that he obsessed over at a roadside attraction in the early 2000s, where he spent 4 hours dropping quarters trying to beat a jitterbugging chicken at a game of tic-tac-toe. All day with that chicken, instead of enjoying the rest of the fair, cowboys dueling, quick-draw reenactments and such, he missed it all. He never beat that chicken. And in the years that followed, that day and its events had ultimately graduated to a family expression. "You want a chicken dance?" they'd ask one another, teasing, prompting. David had understood the obsession. Carr was as lofty as Tom in his imagining, and as scientific. Probably as poetic too, come to think of it, he thought. Carr was an engineer with a favorite pastime of mind-expanding discussions. He and Tom had found common ground very soon after Carr began dating Claire. Tom called Carr his purple gorilla, big and muscular, but gentle and kind. Like Tom, Carr was called to create art to be expressed with intelligence, irony, and wit. But like many creatives, Carr could also get stuck on an idea, such as spending all day looking for an answer to the universe disguised in the form of a dancing chicken. I chuckled to myself about David's thoughts and wanted to chirp out loud, "What came first, the chicken or the rube? And what is probability anyway if you can't be beaten at the edges? A cheap parlor trick?" To that point, I knew David was afraid that Meredith had, in a sense, become just another chicken dance for Tom. A game of tic-tac-toe, he kept thinking to himself. No need to cause a fight. David said, "If she really wants you, she can send for you." Tom cupped the receiver and responded to David, "I know, but I'd rather get there slower. You know how I am." "That's good for me, too. It's difficult to get past security and back into a bag without being noticed. Trust me." David said, "Do you want me to leave?" "No, please stay put." Meredith came back on the line. Tom, this stupid connection. Jerry, so help me. I swear to God, I can't get a decent..." Meredith trailed off, and then the line produced static again. David leaned against the center island, cleaning his hands with some green fluid that Tom didn't recognize. David knew he was looking at it. "It's an apple-scented one. I knew you'd like it," he said. Tom replied, "I'm sure I'll love it." David smiled. Meredith returned to the line. "Listen, I'll call you later. I love you, darling. Ciao." Tom hung up the phone. "Shit," David said. "I know." It took everything I could not to chirp from the corner. Okay, so, well, that was my first time reading 3 or 4 people in dialogue. I hope I did okay. There are a few times when the cricket puts his opinion in there, and maybe by the time I get further along, I'll have perfected the voice of the cricket so that you can tell the difference. This is really more of an audio, not really an audio book, just sort of a reading, so I apologize for my errors. What do we know about what's going on? So apparently the phone has rung. This is the first time we're hearing from Meredith. She wants to see Tom in New York. She has some news for him. But Tom is avoiding her because, of course, he has not produced his next piece of work yet. David is being David. David enters the room as quietly as he can, but he knows that Tom's noticing him, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And David thinking about his brother-in-law, Carr, is a true story about my brother-in-law who spent all day... Apparently I'm hungry. Did y'all hear that? My stomach is growling. Never a dull moment on the Santaland podcast. I'm keeping this all in. I want this to be real. You know, every time I bump my head or take a drink of something, I want you guys to hear it. But anyway, my brother-in-law spent all day trying to beat this chicken at this roadside cowboy reenactment place. I can't remember the name of it. And it was a little chicken, and it played tic-tac-toe. And he was so upset because he couldn't beat that chicken. Spent all day trying to do it. Since then, that chicken has become sort of more than legend. and more than just a saying, but a metaphor, if you will, or how easy it is for us to get focused in on minutia and on a single task at the expense of an even greater reward. And that is what's on David's mind when Meredith calls, because he doesn't like to see Tom going through what he's going through, and he doesn't like to see him being pushed so much by his editor. So, without giving away any spoilers, I think I'm going to keep it here. Although, at 9 minutes, I think it makes sense for me to bring Tim in and have him give some first commentary so that you guys can get to know Tim, who is written in my book largely as the character David. So stand by. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here finally.
This is your first appearance.
Yep.
And so I wanted to cover a little bit of ground with you today.
Of course.
It's interesting. Today is one of those Tom days for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited yesterday because this podcast published yesterday the first, I think, 6 episodes on Apple, and other podcast platforms are coming.
Very excited for you and very proud.
I was all over the moon yesterday.
I know.
But today, uncharacteristically, or characteristically would be actually the more ironic way to say it, I was a little down, and I write about the breakfast ceremony of you bolstering the character Tom, but this is another one of those days.
Right. I understand. I can tell you that, in reflecting on chapters 16 and 17, as far as the characters go, David certainly knows himself, and Tom knows himself, of course. I think that Tom's certainly struggling with the adventures that he's going on in his life right now, his journey. David, I think he knows his mind. He knows what he enjoys, what he would like, and what he'd like to have for the two of them, And you say in chapter 16, David curates the gardens and the things around the house like Tom curates sentences in his writing. And I think that that's a perfect description of those two, and it makes sense why they're so good for each other.
Right.
David handles, really kind of like life on this plane, and Tom is he is in touch with this plane, but he thinks on other planes.
100%. Yeah.
And so I think that the two of them create balance. They balance each other very well.
Right.
So.
Well, you and I have been together for 20 years, and we are with each other 24/7, literally 24/7, every single day. In fact, we have seen, with the exception of a handful of business trips that I had to take by myself, we have probably basically have pretty much been together since almost the first day we met.
Yes, absolutely. And if we weren't, we were on the phone together. So there's not a day that's gone by where we haven't talked.
We have spoken every single day since we met. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Wow.
But it's great though, that says a lot about our relationship, I feel.
Right.
So.
Well, I can tell you that when I wrote these two characters, I wrote them to be drawn from real life. I mean, these are not, it's very truthful in terms of what the character's strengths are and what the character's weaknesses are, more so Tom than David. David is a lot more stoic and a lot more, his feet are firmly planted on the ground, and Tom's are too, but his head is also in the clouds. In chapter 16, I thought it was funny, though, I said that your head was in bushes.
Yes. Sort of like in the clouds.
Sort of like in the clouds, right?
Great metaphor.
Right. Because David can get lost in his own thoughts the same way Tom can, but David's thoughts are far far more logical and linear, and they're about how you can how David and you often can help to make things better, not just for Tom, but for everybody. And that's essential for Tom because he doesn't know always how to take care of himself. Right. And like the character, I can go from incredible creativity and excitement to the very next day feeling doubt and worry that I'm producing something worthwhile, or that any number of things that people think about. I think I'm sure that a lot of it comes from trauma.
Yes.
Especially unresolved trauma. I guess trauma either turns us into three things: either turns us into monsters, turns us into victims, or turns us into heroes.
Right.
And I've struggled my whole life to try to make sure I'm always squarely in the lane that is heroic.
Yeah, I can understand that. And again, that's another reason why they balance each other out, and in their lives balance each other out as well. I focus a lot on the structure, the everyday things, and sort of like the foundation of just our everyday life.
Right.
Okay, David does this, and David also has to do this because David has his own issues, with focus, very much like myself. And so it's probably everything that I see with David that's going on is therapeutic.
Right.
But it's also therapeutic for Tom. He is helping to just try and create and strike this balance. Right. For the two of them. And the section there where they're talking about the full moon and the wolf devouring the moon,
which is true, actually happened.
Yes, actually happened. And that, but for David to point out these things that he knows that Tom likes, to help him just see the beauty and the reasons behind life and happiness.
See, that's why, that's typical of you pulling me out of the darkness and back into the light, because that did happen to me. Yeah. We were in Santa Fe, and an old Indian woman said that to me, and then 20 years later, we're standing in the we're sitting on the couch, and you pointed out the moon.
Right.
You said, "My God, you've got to see that moon."
Yes.
And then I looked over and I said, "Tim, look to the left."
Right.
What do you see?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You pointed out. I had noticed the cloud, but what I didn't notice is what you noticed.
Oh my gosh! It was a total shape of a wolf with its jaws open, ready to eat the moon, and the clouds passed over the moon, and it looked like the wolf was eating the moon.
And what's crazy about that is what the Indian woman said. You're like the wolf. You devour your life.
Like the wolf.
Yes, and the wolf, the moon, is that representation of you and your life.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just there's this magnificent, beautiful thing up in the sky, which really, if you think about it, is life, and it's your life.
Right.
And you devour.
I am like a wolf.
Life.
I have a tattoo on my arm like the character, and it is snarling towards me to remind me not to be that wolf. And I got it because of that. What happened when that woman had said that to me, because at the time I was living in Washington, and I was questioning whether or not I should move to Los Angeles for an opportunity there. And I had gone to Santa Fe. That old woman had said that to me. I'd gone back to D.C. and New York, and for 6 months I dreamt about her. And in the dream, she had braids, gray hair. She was dressed in indigenous clothes, and she had a wolf standing next to her, and most of the time the wolf was growling at me.
Wow.
Until I figured out, it was like she was speaking a different language in my dream. And then one day I heard what she was saying in my dream. I could understand the words that she said. And I know it sounds crazy, and I've written this before, but she said, Break the ties that bind you here. Go out west and find your true self there. Struggle and strife will mold you into a destiny that's worthy of you. Okay?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Worthy of me. Oh, I have a secret. And, we talk about circular reference. A destiny that's worthy of you. So much we talk about perception in the book, and perception is part of the equation that Tom discovers later on, that I discovered. And that what the equation does is not only say, okay, this is why the universe operates this way on every level, not just on the level we see, but on a cosmology level, but also on a quantum level.
Right.
This idea of perception, and how when great trauma happens to people, especially when they're young, or if it happens again to someone when something happened to them when they were young and it was unresolved, like you're derailing that person's innocence, right? You have now put them on a different trajectory that they may have otherwise been, and they have to carry that with them through infinity.
Yeah.
Right. So I think what David's the greatest gift that David brings is a level-headed perspective, right?
Yes.
And he never, correct me if I'm wrong, but you never, and he never makes fun of Tom's eccentricities.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's one of the things that I believe, and I see it in the writing, why David loves Tom so much.
Right.
And that holds true in our life.
Right.
Right. I mean, I could have married anybody, and, we might do this and do that and all these different things together and all that. But if I was not in a relationship with somebody that I could just have this exploration of thought together, just even like this conversation, it's like how you and I talk all the time together, when you were talking about the dream and the wolf growling, what my mind went to too, because I'm going off into this territory about things that we talk about. My mind went to this idea that this woman was a portal to your destiny, and the growling of the wolf is tread lightly and make the right choices. So you're waiting for the wolf to stop growling.
Well, and in the first page of the book, the cricket says, do you know what my favorite African proverb is? All things that make noise at the side of the path do not always come down the path.
Right.
So I think that my eccentricities are fine because I consider myself to be like a redeemed Scrooge. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And same is true for Tom.
Yeah.
I like Tom's character, I've created things my whole life that have helped other people, built the business and helped other businesses and such, that like Tom, I feel needs in a clock. And at my age, I feel like I have so many other things that I want to produce, and the best way for me to do it is to bring it to life and not let anything stand in my way. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Publish this podcast.
Right.
And then see where we can take the written work.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
You
Interrupted you, but I was just going to say is that yes, you need to do this regardless of where it goes.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. Won't it be fantastic, that maybe people don't always like to think about the end of their life, you know what I mean? But what did I say not recently? It's like you need to live your life as if you're lying in your deathbed
100%.
and reflecting on it. You know what I mean? It's like, why didn't I do that?
Right.
If you weren't doing this and you didn't write the book, who knows? We don't know how it's all going to turn out. Okay.
No.
But you're trying to do something that you want to do, that you feel a passion for. So you have to. And that's the most important thing. The whole most important thing in this part of your journey. So is to go for it.
Right. I think is the most important part of anyone's journey. I remember, first of all, thank you for saying that.
Sure.
And thank you for seeing me. That's one of the greatest gifts you give me. One of the greatest gifts I'm trying to give you is to see you evolve, to see me evolve in front of your very eyes,
Right.
to see me let go of the things from the past, like this character has to do, to see me literally stop all energy from going into, a failed project or a person who hurt us or any of those other things. Forgiving that and letting that go, because it doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve us, right? And
Right. No, I understand. And I know that you see that. Okay. And part of the reason why I know that you see that is because I can be like that.
Right.
Okay. When you talked about Umbatu,
right,
that, there's been plenty of times when you've had to say to me, you're looking down this trail and you don't know, you're assuming that something's going to come popping onto the trail
Right.
that you don't need to worry about. I mean, you're manifesting it, know, and so that again is one of the reasons why I know that you understand it and that you are doing this for yourself.
Right.
You're what you talk about.
Right.
You put your money where your mouth is, so to speak.
Well, I heard a motivational speaker years and years ago that stuck with me, and he said that go to any graveyard in America and you'll see that it is populated with mostly broken dreams.
Right.
Right? That you don't want to be the person who's laying on your deathbed and all your hopes and dreams are manifested into faces standing around your bed, crying and saying, "We have to die with you, and we were here all this time. We were waiting all this time for you to just do whatever it is, write that book, move to that city, say yes to love instead of whatever." Right?
Yes.
That you win when you just make the effort, when you put the intention onto something to improve yourself is one thing, but to improve the world,
Right.
not from a sense of ego, but from a sincere desire to share joy and love.
Love,
right?
exactly. And that is one of the things that I know about you is that you try to give love. That's all you try to do, And we've had this conversation too about, what's the one thing that you give and the one thing that you get, but get to take both with you.
Right.
And it's love. That's
Right.
all. That's all you
Right.
get, and of course we'll have our memories when we're in the next world and all that. But those memories are all based in love.
Memories like love are often felt even more deeply when viewed from behind.
Yeah.
When viewed looking backwards. Isn't that's the paradox of love sometimes? The cricket says that in the first page too.
Yeah.
And in the midst of love, sometimes we don't understand its power until we look backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the character Tom would not exist if it wasn't for the character David. That I think you showed up in my life at the most important time in my life because I had had enough life experience that I could be somebody worthwhile to somebody. But I had not fully blossomed into the person I was supposed to until I met you, because you gave me all the things that I needed that I never had.
Wow.
And I wanted them
Well, thank you.
so bad.
Right.
And I never had them for a long time.
Yeah. And
And
well, thank you.
I'm talking about kindness,
Yeah.
compassion, consideration,
Right.
respect, grace,
Right.
love, intimacy, transparency, adventure, his humor. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that I can help provide that in your life, but you provide it for myself, and I know that Tom provides that for David. I think that David and myself we're a little slow at catching up and realizing those things, and reflecting on my life,
Right.
Do
Do you know that's a good thing? Because if someone's pretending to understand and they're right in lock sync with me, that's no good for me.
Right.
That's no good for them.
Yeah.
Because they're not being truthful. But when you say, oh, hold on, I need a minute to digest this. I need a minute to think about this.
Right.
Because I hit you with some crazy shit, right? We talk about gravity and spin and frequency and how the interplay between those and gravities pull on time, internal gravity versus external gravity, and the mirror reflect. Like I put you through your paces at dinner time sometimes.
Yeah. Well, but it's cool though. You know, you give me a lot to think about. You know, you mentioned spin a little bit ago, but where did that spin come up in your life? It was a conversation you and I were having by the fire when we were camping.
Right.
And you were talking about the vortex.
We were sitting in a vortex. We had camped in the middle of a vortex.
We talked about spin.
We are now on, okay, we're at 20 minutes of you and I yakking on top of the read. So that'll be 29 minutes. So I'm going to stop this here, and I'm going to bring you in on the next couple of episodes.
Awesome. I'm happy.
If you're available.
Sure. I'll be around here somewhere, I'm sure.
Thank you, Tim, for joining me.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you.
And thank you all for listening. Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
I had a good time too.
Good.
You brought me from a lower place to a higher place, which is, you always bring me from a low vibration to a high vibration without making a fuss, just by being you. So thanks. You are the Spock to my Kirk.
Oh, thank you, hon. Love you.
Love you too. Okay, thank you everybody for listening to the Santaland podcast. I really appreciate that you are here. You can find us on Apple and many of your other podcast favorite platforms. Look for us there. You can also find us at thesantalandpodcast.com, which is santalandpodcast.com. No THE. All right, that's it.
Cool.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.